So, you know, maybe a year, probably this time last year, I made a couple of bowls out of Cernit, and I felt like making another bowl pretty much. So I made these, and I also made a red version, and I'm gonna make another. This one, oh, I never finished sanding or buffing that one. Huh, I'm gonna finish that. Good to know. So I'm gonna make another one, but I don't know what I'm gonna put on top yet. So all I have here is some scrap end canes with some color, but a lot of translucent, and I'm gonna use that as my base. I might make one or two, I don't know, we'll see. And then here's just a little bit of white and mainly translucent. And so I'm gonna condition this all up. I'm just chopping it up so it can fit through my machine a little easier without straining it, because it's pretty firm at this point. It's not very soft, so I don't want to strain my machine too much. So literally I'll just run it through piece by piece until I get a color. But for you know, trays or bowls or whatever, you kind of need a good amount, so I might try to pull out whatever extra I have as well. So I have this. Oh, here's a piece that's got to go down some. I don't want it to be too much thicker than a setting 0 to run through my pasta machine. So I have that scrap. I have a little more of this end cane here that I can chop up. Let's see. I have some of that white and translucent scrap I was using a while back. Oh, here's some yellow. Let's use this. And then here's some yellow and white scrap from a sunflower I was trying to make. Didn't really like the way the sunflower came out, so I kind of chopped it up. So here I didn't have enough yellow or scrap or of the flower. I didn't make enough for the petals to be big enough, and so it kind of looked funny. The center was too big for what the petals are, I think, so might as well use it up. I'm trying not to get the brown in it though. Isn't that pretty? I love how these, when you slice up your canes, how the insides, they look so cool. You know, they give you a kind of a pattern on its own, in a way. Oh, that didn't work. But they kind of give you a cool looking pattern. So as much, you know, you could use a solid color too, or whatever you want to use. I mean, like I said, I really don't know what I'm going to put on this veneer, but I haven't really done any clay. It's mid-September and we have to do wood, and so a couple weeks ago we were chopping. Well, my fiance hunked it up and then I split it, and then the next weekend we had to bring it home, and we still have more to bring over. We got about a cord here. So, you know, it's that time of year where we got to get busy with. I mean, we have heat. We can use our heater, but it's cheaper for us to use wood because we have trees that fall down all over the place. Not on our property. We don't have any trees on our property, but my mother-in-law does. So pretty much what I'll do is I'll take each slice, run it through on 0, and then just stick them together. So that's how I do it, so I don't strain my machine too much. I take 2, stick it together, run it through to make 1, take 2, stick it together, run it through to make 1, and then I'll stick these 2 together, and then I'll keep just doing that until I have a solid mix. I want a solid color for sure, but it's because it has yellow and pink in it, it's not going to be very translucent. Even though it has a lot of translucent, it's not going to be completely translucent. So it doesn't take much clay to color translucent at all. See how crumbly it is? It really needs to be conditioned well. So I'm going to get that conditioned into a sheet, and You know, we've made a bowl before, so I'll just kind of quick through it, the actual bowl making. Okay, so I have all my clay mixed up here. It's kind of a, in real life, it's more of like a coral color. On camera, it's looking more like a pink skin tone, but it's quite bright in real life. A little muted. Not exactly pink, but not exactly orange. Kind of that in between. Salmon, maybe. So last time I made the bowls off of this here, right? We did 2 halves and then put them together. I think this time I might use this one. I have a bunch of these jars that I got from Goodwill, and I use them for plants and stuff. But I mean, this one was $2. I just took the sticker off. It was $2 for this really heavy-duty glass. But it's also wider at the top than it is at the bottom, so I should be able to pull it off. There's no indents where clay would get stuck in. So this should be a good one. And if I make it like up to here, I have a good container. Whereas these ones are good, but they're smaller, you know, they're smaller. So if we're holding like a pen, it's kind of, I mean, it holds it, but it's kind of awkward, you know. These are so dusty. So anyways, I mean, it's kind of, yeah, just a little awkward. Whereas if I make it like this tall, this should hold stuff fairly easily. Again, I don't know what I'm going to put on the outside for a veneer, but my base I got to make anyways. So the first thing roughly to get, and I can, if we don't get a straight line across, same as with this, if I didn't get a straight line, that's okay, because we can sand it down later. But roughly, if you go from like the bottom, and this is just a metal ruler. Some people have asked me if this was, where'd you get your ruler blade? And I was like, it's not a blade. Maybe if I go 2.5 inches up, something like that. And this is again just a rough. Now normally, or what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these marks on the inside, but I'm going to kind of trace along my line on the inside, and then I can kind of wipe it off on the outside. So it doesn't stick to my clay, you know. Oh, I should put one on this a little bit more over here. It's curved, so it's kind of hard. But then if you kind of go along, roughly follow your, again, it's really hard to hold it all. Still, I'm saying these 3 are probably more accurate than that one, but let me see, hang on. No, actually looks pretty good. Okay, and then you would go on the inside and copy this line so you don't wipe it off or it doesn't put a black line on your clay. Now I'm going to do that all around all 3 sides, or all 4 sides, sorry. 3 sides, it'd be a triangle. Okay, so now we have the lines on the inside, so it shouldn't leave black lines on our clay. And we need to get a strip of clay about that wide. So what I'm going to do, and it needs, I want one solid piece to go all the way around. So literally, I'm just going to take some clay. And kind of get myself a long strip. Let me run this through a couple times around the side, the size I need it, 2.5 inches tall. The base we won't worry about right now, but I do want it to go all the way around. So let me run this through. I am going to do setting 0. You do want this to be sturdy because you're going to have to pry it off of here unless you're going to cover the whole thing and use it. Remember, if you don't have glass on the inside, you're not going to be burning like a flame candle. You can use a flameless candle, but unless you keep the glass inside, you don't want to burn anything in these, in just the clay. But if you're going to remove the clay from the glass, you want to make it thick. Okay, I've had people, when we did the other bowl, they didn't they were having issues, and then she goes, it broke, and I had actually like 2 people, and I was like, well, how thick are you doing it? She goes, on like a setting 3 or 4, and I'm like, no, I was doing a 0. Do a 0 because you do want it to be fairly sturdy. Okay, so I'm going to run these through until I get a strip as wide as I need to go all the way around. Now, I could totally measure a 2.5-inch strip out of this, but to me, you know, to do that, I'm not that worried about it for my base. So I'm just going to lay it right on here. And again, it's kind of wobbly because it's a domed kind of thing, so it's a little bit awkward. So big thing is just kind of pushing as much air out as you can. I made a tray the other day for my bedroom, and my freaking oven... So I put it in the same oven I usually put it in my countertop KitchenAid oven, and 1/2 of it browned, some like white clay and stuff. It's spiking on one side, and it's been fine for like 2 years, and now it's starting to spike on one side. So I put my oven, I was like, why did this half... I used these canes and they turned brown, the white did. And I was like, why did it do it on one half? I'll show you, I'll get the tray. It did it on one half of the tray, but not the other. So then I put my thermometer in it, and at 275, when I put the thermometer on the left side, it was almost at 300, and the right side was 275. So I think because I got this KitchenAid from my mother-in-law, and it wasn't new. When she gave it to me, she just didn't need it anymore, so I'm thinking the heating coils might be going, which kind of sucks. Oops, that's okay, that's the bottom right there. So I might have to get a new one. Also, I'm putting it at 275 and it's getting up to almost 300, so I'm kind of like, oh, damn it. So I might need to buy a new one, but because I don't like to heat up my whole oven. So let me actually cut this end straight, straighter. And then I'm just kind of pushing down to see where that is. See, it kind of leaves a line. I'm going to cut it in the air, because if I tilt that, it's going to indent. Now, this was in my flower pot stuff, so there's some dirt on the inside of it, because it was with my, like, indoor flowering stuff. With all my other flower pots and things. And then I'm just going to push this. I know it's kind of hard for you guys to see it. I'm going to push this seam together. There we go. And you can use like a needle tool, or I know like Fiona Abel Smith, she uses a knitting tool. You could also just take some wax paper and burnish it. This is just our base though. But, I mean, the smoother you get the base, the better it will all look, so. And then I'm going to take my little rolling pin. I'm going to just kind of gently, again, kind of difficult because it's rounded. And I know you saw me in that fast forwarded. I did, with 99% alcohol, rub off the outside marks of the permanent marker. I just don't want any air between this and the glass, so that's what I'm really... Oh, there's a little indent in the glass there. Hopefully not too big of an indent. See how the glass indents right there? Hopefully it won't get stuck in it. Luckily, polymer clay is fairly flexible, so it shouldn't. I should be able to pull it off. I'm just trying to get all the air out from underneath. Smooth it out. And then we'll cut off our excess. Oh, someone's here. The boys are going to bark. Okay, sorry. It was my mother-in-law doing something outside. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is just trim off this excess here. And again, we'll make the base later. I mean, you could try to make it all in one. I just find it easier not to, because especially this one's got like this lip right here. I'll just make a square later, either with a cutter or eyeball, and set it on it later. Okay, so that's the bottom. Now we can set it down like that. And then literally you'll just go around the edge, and either you can do it straight. I don't want to flatten it too much on these edges, so tilting it up is hard for you guys to see, because if I tilt it up, I'm flattening these off, and I don't want to do that. So you got to find your line, and then you can just follow it. Again, I'm not overly worried if this is perfectly straight, because I'm going to sand this later, and I can just sand it on a big piece of sandpaper flat. So maybe I'll hold it up in the air. Hang on. Sorry, my desk is kind of messy at this point. So if I hold it up maybe like this, I'll get fingerprints in it. But you can try to do it if your blade is rigid enough. I'm just going to kind of go around like this, I think, until I expose my permanent marker line. And I'm going to put a veneer over this, so this isn't the base. Now, this is really, really heavy glass. I can already feel my fingers denting down in there. This new phone is definitely different. It doesn't focus as well, I feel like. I don't know. You guys got to tell me. I just got a new phone, which is what I record on, and I feel like it doesn't focus as well as the old one did. So I'm just going to get down here and roughly do this all the way around, and then we'll bake this base. Obviously 275, and I'll probably, because I do want it to be sturdy so it doesn't break when I take it off, but I know I'm going to do multiple bakes. I'm going to do the base, and then I'm also going to be doing the base, and then I'm going to also do a veneer. So this will get a good amount of bakes on it. So I'll probably only do maybe 40 minutes, a little over a half hour, so it's sturdy, but not a full hour, because it's going to get a couple of hours in the total bake. But I don't want it to break when I take it off the glass. Just trying to expose my line a little closer. Now, I don't think this blade is completely straight either. I think it's got a little warp in it. But I want to get everything close. Just close. Don't over stress about it. Because we can sand it fairly easily later. I mean, if you don't want to sand, you know, you can measure 2.5 inches up from the edge and try it that way too. You could have also cut a 2.5 inch strip, so you didn't have to worry about it, though when you're messing with it, it'll probably get distorted. So there's many ways you can do it. However you want to do it, go for it. You know, if you think of an easier way, well, that's the whole point of art, is interpreting things in a different way. And actually, you know, just thinking about it, this might look cool if we have a wavy edge too, actually. Like if you have a slightly different edge. Now from the inside, it definitely looks like it's higher than my line. From the outside, not so much. Okay, that's about good enough. So I guess it kind of depends what angle you look at it on how it looks. That's good enough for me. Okay, I'm going to get that in the oven, like I said, 40 minutes at your baking temperature for whatever clay you're using. I tend to do 275, unless it's one of those really low baking temperature clays. But for Primo, Cernit, and Kato, I tend to do 275. Yeah, let me get it in the oven. So it's the next day, and here's my base. And I did bake it. So in my oven, I have one tray in my toaster oven. And normally, hang on. You know, you guys talk about burning a lot of my Facebook page, like burning translucent things. So you really have to take into account how close you are to your heating element. If your oven is not heating evenly, so move your in-oven. You only need like a $5 or $6 in-oven thermometer, but move that around and make sure one side of your oven isn't hotter than the other side, or the front or the back isn't getting hotter than another area. Because some people are getting their translucent to be really yellow, or their whites are darkening. So if it's really close to your heating elements, maybe back it away. If you're using tinfoil, maybe don't use tinfoil and just take a piece of paper and just lay it over it, or non-wax parchment instead of tinfoil. Making sure your oven's not spiking, because sometimes you put your dial at 275, but inside your oven, it's actually getting hotter than that. So though your dial is set at something, it may not be the same temperature inside. Again, the other day, because I think my KitchenAid, I've had it for about 5 years, and it was used when my mother-in-law gave it to me. I think my heating elements are going. So this half is fine, and this half of my oven, because it's about this size, I can fit this in it. I burnt something over here, and over here it was fine. I didn't actually burn it. It just turned my white brown, and then over here the cane looked the same. So these elements over here, it's 2 long ones, are getting hotter than over here. So when I just bake this, I put it more to the one that's staying at 275. When I put my thermometer over here, it's fine, but over there it's getting to 300. So you really got to just play with all of those things. You don't need to bake a project every single time. You can take a piece of translucent, if that's what you're having issues with, or white, and just take a square piece and try it up higher, try it in the middle, try it down low. Play around, use, kind of common sense, and try to figure it out for your specific oven. But don't bake a nice piece that you're like in love with and then be like, oh crap, what happened? You know what I mean? Yes, we all have accidents where we don't realize what our temperature set at, especially mine's a dial. I don't have to preset it every time. I've definitely cooked something in it the day before and then forgot I put it up to 400 and was like, shit, So kind of use common sense and try to problem solve. No one can tell you what your oven is going to do specifically. So that's that. So with this, because if I baked it like this, my heating elements in my oven, where my rack is normally in the middle, I have 2 options. I have in the middle, or I have really down low. If I left it up like this, my heating elements were like an inch away from this, which means this part's going to get really hot. So what I did was I put it on one of my tiles. I lowered my rack to the lowest spot I could do it, because I'm in a countertop oven, like a toaster oven. It's actually a countertop convection oven, not just a toaster oven. I mean, it has bake, broil, toast, warm, and then it has a dial from 0 to 475, I think. And then, so it has all those settings. So it's actually an oven, not just a toaster oven. And, it's probably like almost a $200 one. And, so I lowered my rack and then I baked it like this. So then the heating elements were up here, and that's kind of how far usually I keep it away. So depending how big of a thing you're doing will depend as well how far away from the heating elements. So anyways, this is baked. I baked it yesterday, so now we need to try to demold it. So the first way when I demold things is I kind of go around the edge, and you can hear it. You can hear it breaking away. Luckily, polymer clay is flexible. So I'm just going to gradually work around the edges. Sometimes I'll go from this side a little bit too, if I can get my finger under it a little bit. You just want to go slow. And then sometimes I'll take an older blade, not my nice new one I say, but that one's like 6 months old. This blade is probably 2 years old. Look how kind of rusty it is from sitting in my basement. It's like all nasty. So sometimes I'll take my blade, this is a dull one. I mean, I've sharpened it, and I just recently sharpened it, so it does have a little edge. So obviously, if you're using a nice new blade, you guys know your own blades, which ones are dull or not. Just run your blade under it and try to break that seal from the glass. All the way over to the edges. Get as much of that seal broken as you can. I can even see down there. You see where it's still really stuck on the corner and where it's not on the side. So you can try to get as close to the corner as you can without, you know, ripping. See, that one's fully broken away pretty much. And that one's kind of stuck. And right here too. So let me see if I get it. See how it, you could see it pull away. As much as you can, get it before you start trying to pry it off. And then start trying to pull. Let me go from this end too, actually. Just get up under here too. I've never baked on this one. You know, a lot of creators on YouTube do a lot of practice runs. I tend not to because I want to show you my mistakes. Because if I show you my mistakes, then hopefully you can learn from them, right? Why make you make the mistakes with the clay too? So, ta-da! Off. So that's our inside. You could line your inside with something if you wanted to. You could put something in here if you want to make that prettier or whatever. Just gonna, there's a couple little really thin raggedy edges, so I'm just gonna kind of see if I can, either with your blade or your craft knife, just get these really loose ones off, like really, really thin ones. Again, this is my really old blade, but like these really thin ones on the edge. I don't know if this is focusing right. Whenever I look at it, it doesn't seem to focus right, but then when I edit the videos, it seems fine, so I don't know. New phones. I got a new phone like a couple weeks ago now, but I haven't made any videos, so I'm still kind of learning how it records. Okay. So then you're going to need some Bacon Bond because we're going to do our base now. And this should bake fine like this. You shouldn't have to stick it back on. Now, if you're doing one like my old one, you could totally, this is a flat bottom, you could have totally left it on and then just put your base on it. But I don't remember how I did it in the other video. But with this one, it's got like this ring. So I wouldn't want to, I don't want that in it. So I'm going to bake this separate. So a little Bacon Bond. Spread that out. And I have a piece that should be big enough, I hope. If not, I'll grab some more. I might need to. This bottom is kind of big, actually. We could put it on the inside if I wanted to. I could lay it like on the inside, but I think I'm just going to lay it on the outside. Let me see if this is big enough. Yep. Just kind of pushing it down, really adhering that down in there. And I'm, again, going to bake it like this, so it shouldn't bubble up. But when I get it on the tile, I'll push it nice and firmly against the tile. Use my nicer blade, and then we can go around and, you know, again, you don't have to be perfect with this because I'm going to smooth some of this out, and then I'm going to sand it as much as I can, but I'm going to take my finger and do some of this with it. Actually cut that a little too beveled. Get it back over here some. There we go. So what I'll do is I'll probably spend a little time just kind of smoothing all of this off. You know, do it however you want to. Whatever you want to do for the moment you're in. Honestly, if I do something one way one day, I may do it totally different the next day. It just kind of sometimes depends on my mood that I'm in, you know? I mean, right now it's Monday night. It's 10 o'clock. I'm kind of tired. I got a bad headache. I'm doing Invisalign right now. And my bite's all off. And I got a wicked headache. And so I'm just kind of going with whatever I'm doing. If it ain't perfect, that's okay. I'll just make it work, right? That's a good thing about kind of art and polymer clay is we just make things work. You know, I mean, there are people out there that you're like, perfectly, match it perfectly. And I hate that when I watch videos that people are like, do it perfect. Why? I mean, some of us are selling things, and yes, as perfect as you can get it would be great if people are buying your stuff. But I mean, if you're just doing stuff for the fun of it, then why? In my mind, why stress over those kind of things? And I don't know. It ain't worth it to me. I'm making this for me. No one else. And even if I was making it for my mom, for my mother-in-law, for a Christmas gift, or a birthday gift, or one of my nieces, my sister, whoever, do you think they would look at it and go, Katie, there's a fingerprint. I got your fingerprint in that. I'm so upset. I don't want it. Do you think they're going to say that? Not once do I think my loved one will say that to me, that they see a fingerprint or they see an indent. I mean, obviously I'm going to veneer this. This isn't done, right? So it doesn't need to be as perfect. But I don't even think in a piece I've had ever, even coworkers and friends that have bought pieces, have never once noticed the imperfections I notice because I made it. So also, it's homemade. It's not manufactured. It's not made by a machine. There's going to be little dings and dents and things like that, and that is okay. That means it is handmade. If you want something that can be reproduced over and over with flawless results, have a machine do it. You're not buying something handmade. You're not buying an individual piece. Because even, you know, as any kind of artist, right? You can call yourself artist. Even if you don't sell them, you can call yourself artist, right? So even if, no matter what you're doing, the individuality of a piece, even if you're doing a piece that you've done multiples of, right? So say you've made a pendant and you made a cane and you just laid that on a piece. Every single one you do, because they are handmade, are going to be different. Every single one. Not one of them will end up the same. Well, you'd have to be really good for them to be exact. So that is okay. That is handmade. It is actually one of a kind that way. So don't overly think about it. So I'm just kind of getting the bulk off with my fingers here. Obviously, there are probably nicer ways to do this. I'm just kind of letting what's already there kind of trim off by smoothing it out like this. Kind of like a smear. You know, I could take my roller. Kind of feather it. Get it as close as you can. And again, this is the base. We're going to lay another veneer over this. That's probably going to be, you know, a setting 0 thick. So, you know, minor imperfections, you're really not going to notice too much. That side's not too bad right now. Okay, I'm going to fuss with this for maybe another minute or so, but I won't have you watch it, and then I'll show you when I come back what I'll do next. Okay, so once you have it fairly smoothed out, I mean, you can go around more with your blade and try to trim off where you feathered it up if you want. You know, however much you want to make this smooth, you do that. Okay, that's up to you. Maybe I'll leave that because I don't want to poke into it. Let me smooth that back off now that I did that. Got my blade marks in there. So it's not perfect. Definitely not perfectly smooth, but see, why doesn't it seem like this is focusing on what I want it to focus on? I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's focusing like my other one used to. What I'll do next is I'll either take a paper towel, something, and with some alcohol, and where I've feathered it, I'll rub. Now, the alcohol is going to remove clay. It actually dissolves the clay, so it's not like, but it can help smooth it out. You don't want to be like doing it a bunch here because that's where you're seaming it together, right? And you want it to stick there, but like up these sides, okay? Smooth it out a little bit. I wonder if there's settings that I can edit how it records. Like photos, you can put it in pro and close up and panorama and all that. I wonder if in recording you can do that. I can edit it on my free app. You know, I have an video editing app that was free. I'm not going to pay for a video editing app. Some people have Adobe apps and different things that they paid for to edit, but I don't have the time to spend 2 hours editing. Just merging every portion of these, because every time I pause, that's a segment, right? And you can't choose more than one video on YouTube to upload. So I can't just, like on Facebook, you can choose 5 or 6 photos to upload. You can't choose 5 or 6 videos on YouTube to upload. It has to be all in one file. So I have to combine all these pieces, like this part that I started yesterday. Anytime I pause and I said I'll be right back, I have to splice all of those together. And just doing that takes time. You know, it takes like 20 minutes to get it all to link and then to save it, you know, which takes time for it to load. It takes like 15 minutes on the program, the free program I use, for it to fully load it all. You know, if I had a 20-minute segment yesterday and it took like 20 minutes to load the 3 segments into one. That's probably good enough here. Again, I can keep smoothing more, but honestly, I think it's pretty fine in my book. Okay. So there is our base. And now we have the glass to do something with again. So what I'll do is I'll take my tile, and this time I'm going to bake it this way. Okay, that's how I baked it the last time, but I had the glass in it. And I'm going to push it down on my tile just to make sure this part is set into that. Oh, see, I didn't get off all the permanent marker. That was from the permanent marker. I missed that little spot. That's why I drew it on the inside, because that would have been along my whole thing. So I'm just pushing it down into that base, you know, making sure it's sealed well. Okay, and then this is ready to go in the oven. Again, I'll do 275, probably for, you know, again, probably not 30 minutes, because 30 is like minimum baking time for most clays. So I tend to, if I want it to be a little bit stronger, I go 40. If I don't need a full bake, because this one's already done 40 minutes, then we're going to do another 40 minutes. So this will have over an hour. And when I'm finally done, this is going to have a couple hours. And then this will just have 40 minutes. So, you know, just enough to make it strong, but it doesn't need to be perfect. My base isn't fully stuck down to the tile because there's a little air underneath it, but I'm afraid if I pop it back up. Okay, there we go. See if I can pop it back up in one spot and get the air out so that base is sitting flat on my tile, stuck to my tile. I mean, it's okay if my base was wavy too. I mean, that's not the end of the world. The edges were stuck. The middle was kind of bubbling up in a spot. But now it's not. Okay. And later, if you want to cover the inside, that's, again, your call. So this is ready to go, 40 minutes, and then I'll have my bowl done. It's actually a really good size. I mean, this is like a little under 5 inches, or a little over 12 centimeters, and it should be fairly square. So, and then it's from the base I just put in, it's about 7 centimeters tall, or a little over 2.5 deep. So I think it'll work well for, you know, pens and different things that should hold stuff without them tilting out, or anything I want to use it for. Okay, so I'm going to get that in the oven. I will stop talking, and then really our base is done. And then it's about putting whatever you want on the outside. If you have a really rough base, you might want to pre-sand it before you put your veneer on it. Also, if you're going to put your veneer on a setting 9, right, really thin, it's not going to cover that much. Whereas if you're going to put your veneer on a setting 3, you know, it might cover more, or a setting 0. So, you know, what setting you put your veneer on will also play a role in how much you can disguise. Okay. I mean, I have a couple fingerprints from where I was holding it, but they aren't bumps. So honestly, I'd probably lay a veneer right on this. And before I do any veneer, I'd probably sand this end on some sandpaper flat, just doing this on a big piece of sandpaper. And that way it all flattens off. And once you see it scuffed up everywhere, then it should be even. If it's only roughing up like 1 or 2 spots, those are the high spots. But you can also see when you lay it down, that's pretty flat. I'm a little high there. I'm a little high there, so this part's a little longer. It's not too bad. So pretty much on the corners I dipped down when I cut, but it's really not that bad. So just a little sanding and it'd be really even if you want your edge really even.